Dustin, welcome to Halloween Daily. Thank you so much for hanging out and talking to us today.
My pleasure. Let's do it. Let's talk all things Halloween.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, we're going to be talking Halloween. We're going to be talking Dark Harvest, and I've told you privately. I've said here on the channel that it's my favorite movie of 2023. So I'm super excited for that. And then there's a few other out of this world projects that you've been a part of that I'm excited to talk about as well. But like you said, all things Halloween. We're Halloween Daily. We're recording this in January, and it's freezing out here on the East Coast. But in our minds, it's always October. It's always Halloween. So if you'll indulge us for just a minute, I like to, whenever possible, start these chats with a little bit about the holiday itself. So I'll just ask, what does Halloween mean to you? Do you look forward to the holiday like we do and go big on celebrating?
When I was a little kid, it was like my favorite holiday just because you got to wear the costumes and, just you really got to like think, who do I want to be? And there's a lot of kind of excitement. I remember being like in grade school, elementary school, and just, all the kids were like, oh, what are you going to be? What are you going to, and there was like, chat and like, oh, that's a cool thing to be. And I have always been more of a creative type person. And so it really was a fun holiday to let your creativity shine. And I feel like it was one of those days where creativity is king. And so it was really like whoever could come up with the most creative costume or, like the most authentic or, was like the coolest. And so it was a day that I really looked forward to. I always liked like the if Halloween was on a weekend, the Friday before you get released, you like wear a costume to school. And
Yeah.
I always remember though feeling a little sad, like why can't we wear costumes all the days? Like why do we have to just wait for one day? Why can't I like express myself in a creative way like on a random Tuesday in March?
Yeah. Yeah, well, and again, that's that's why we're here, so we can express Halloween and live like that every day, and it's a lifestyle and a culture as much as it's a holiday. And I've talked to a lot of people and asked them that question that are in the entertainment industry, and a lot of them do recognize that yeah, some of their earliest kind of performative instincts might have grown out of just that holiday and getting to play a different character even for a night or so. So I can definitely see how that could lead in to performing. So and we always have to ask, what is your favorite costume and your favorite Halloween costume that you've worn and your favorite Halloween candy or treat?
Ooh, I think my favorite costume, I think I did it a couple times as a kid, but I played Orko from He-Man.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
don't know
awesome.
why, but I was obsessed with like Orko. Maybe like two or three Halloweens. I was like, I just want to be Orko again. And my parents probably loved that because they didn't have to, come up with something new or,
Right.
but yeah, Orko was like my go-to Halloween buddy for a while. My favorite candy. Um, I've never met a carb I didn't like, so I just love whether it's Sour Patch Kids are probably one of my favorite like candies.
Yeah, yeah, they're pretty
But I
awesome.
love chocolate stuff too is like wonderful.
Yeah, can't say no. Yeah, I mean that's a weakness. Yeah, I mean a Snickers or a Twix. Yeah, you
What's
can't
one
go
of your
wrong with those.
favorites?
Well, those are right at the top. Probably Snickers is like my go-to. But yeah, any pretty much anything chocolate with a little bit of peanut butter mixed in. I mean Reese's. They're Reese's pumpkins
Can't
especially.
can't go wrong, huh?
Yeah, yeah, totally. um, So, have you always wanted to be an entertainer, a performer? Is this something that you were into at a young age, or how did this come to be, and how did it eventually lead into doing movie stunt work and what you're working on now?
Yeah, I've always been a little ham, like even when I was little. I just remember, my parents would have their friends over and my sister and I would like run into our bedroom and like pull, costumes or different things and like then we'd come out and present like what we were wearing in a very dramatic way or a little skit or we'd sing a song or we were always really like dramatic My poor parents. But we always had a lot of fun. And I remember dressing the dog up and like we'd bring the dog out, in a costume and always very theatrical. So I think that just translated even in the classroom. There's a lot of opportunities for creativity when you're a kid, like a book report, you can, dress
Yeah.
up like the character you're doing, or, there's just, there's a lot of ways to like express yourself. And I went to a school that we had a music like class once a week, and we would do like a music program and once a year. And I always remember that was like a really exciting time that we'd get to like work on all the music all year and then present it for our family and friends. And the next day after the big concert, we'd do it for the whole school, and that always felt very grand. And I think I just always liked it.
Yeah.
Some kids didn't really care for it, or some kids got nervous, but I just always really like looked forward to it. I loved the storytelling. I loved music is one of my first loves, and so I think just combining music and storytelling and acting, and when I found out you like dancing was a profession later on in life, I was like, well, I can wiggle and get paid for it. This is so cool.
Nice. So it is something that's always kind of been there. It sounds like, and again, that Halloween costuming and playing dress up, and that leads right into performing, and like you said, all types of performing. So when did the stunt work and this I guess creature performing start coming into it? For lack of a better term, I mean, I know you appeared as the Smiley Man in the X-Men film New Mutants, and I imagine that was probably a preview of some of the other stuff to come for you, maybe. Can you talk a little bit about breaking into that and getting that role? What that was like?
Yeah, that really was kind of my first golden ticket, where you just
Yeah.
feel like, whoa, this is amazing. Like, I've always been a fan of the movies, and then to actually get to be like a little featured part in a huge Marvel movie was like a dream come true. I grew up probably by high school, I started doing community theater, and that was really, really important to my development as far as like an actor. And you're working as a team, you have a responsibility to memorize your lines, and you're really having to pull your weight. And so I just love community theater is one of my favorite things still to this day. It's like, you know, in the business, you're doing it for, you love it, but it also becomes a paycheck and it becomes a job. And so it becomes very adult, and people kind of lose their joy with it. But when you go back to community theater, the only reason people are there is because they love it, and you have your teachers and your plumbers and, like people who just are spending their free time to create art together. And I love that. Even if it's not high art, if they're doing their best, and it's like that fills my heart so full. So I love community theater. But so from community theater to then transitioning to professional theater in my early 20s, I moved to New York, trained as a dancer. um, really, really worked my butt off to like build technique, work on flexibility and strength and things like that, and then combine that with my music and my acting, just kind of working on like the total package of what I would offer like a casting director. Um, and I would audition for movies and commercials and Broadway shows, and sometimes with success, a lot of times without success. And there, I remember for the Marvel film, The New Mutants, they were looking for someone who was 7'2". I'm 6'8". So I was like short, but too short for the role. But I remember they were looking for someone who was 7'2", and they wanted them to be very, very flexible. And I guess they were having trouble finding this person, and they looked for about 6 months in a lot of different continents. They were auditioning basketball players, former NBA players, former, basketball leagues, and the different countries, and they really just couldn't find. Either they were too muscular, or as these tall guys, they couldn't touch their toes. They were too like stiff. And so I had just played Lurch in The Addams Family in a theater production in California, and I was walking around in like 6-inch hidden lifts in my shoes to make me even taller.
Yeah.
So I asked the theater if I could borrow those shoes for my audition, and I braided hair into my hair, and I had a huge man bun on top of my head. So I had this extra 6 inch lifts, which made me 7'2", and then I had this like big man bun on top of my head that like added maybe about 4 other inches. So I looked gigantic. So I went in, and I remember they asked me, how tall are you? And I said, well, I'm 7'2" today. Today I'm 7'2", and they laughed, and I was like. Anyhow, that was that kind of how I got the audition. It was a blind audition. I didn't know anyone. They really just were having trouble finding me.
And it was just meant
Uh,
to be, I guess, that it would be
yeah,
you that they would find.
everything really aligned with that one, and because of that, that kind of snowballed to other projects, and producers talk and casting directors talk,
Sure.
and when they're looking for someone who is kind of a specialty performer, they say like, how was that guy to work with? And that's why it's so important to always be gracious, always be kind, even on the days that you want to lose your temper, or like things, just to think, how do I want to handle this, rather than just being reactionary, because those things help build your reputation that will help you get other work down the line.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, like you mentioned, I mean, you're bringing a unique set and array of talents that not everybody, they might have the size or the height, or they might have the flexibility, but not or they might have the dance, but not the acting experience. And you're kind of bringing, like you said, crafting a package you can present. And I imagine for the casting directors and these directors that, that is kind of attractive to them to say, all right, well, this guy can not just do the stunts, but he can, bring a performance into here beyond just, doubling or standing in with a mask, or whatever it may be.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. It's to be a well-rounded performer, really just, it's such a competitive world,
Yeah.
and there can be 8 people standing in a line that kind of look like you, and the casting
Yeah.
director can be like, we need someone with blue eyes. And there's some things that are just out of your control, but there are
Sure.
some things that you can help do to create a more attractive package, like you're talking about.
Absolutely. So, and you said that was, kind of the golden ticket, as you said, that was the one that kind of kick-started your film career, I guess we could say. And so was Dark Harvest the next big thing? I guess it was, right? You're Sawtooth Jack, obviously, and this is like a major. If you haven't seen the movie, I urge you pause this, go watch Dark Harvest, come back, finish the interview, so we don't got to worry about spoilers or anything. But yeah, I mean, it's awesome. I love it. And but was that kind of the next big milestone as far as the film work after New Mutants?
So New Mutants had a really funny journey. We filmed in 2017, but we had a
Yeah,
series of like, I don't know if you remember, but there was like maybe 5 release dates that came and went.
yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
they were just like baiting and switching people.
That's
And
right.
like it ended up not releasing theatrically until 2020 in
That's right.
theaters
Yeah, yeah. It
during
did
the
take
pandemic.
a
It was
long
like one
time.
of
Yeah.
two, it was like one of two movies that was
And I
actually
forgot
in
it was
movie
during the
theaters.
pandemic. You're right. Yeah, I forgot about that. But yeah, I knew it took a long time from when filming wrapped to when it was finally released. And I think it was the Disney buying Fox at the time and all that, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly right. They
Yeah.
were kind of in negotiations of like what it was going to be and who was going to own it. And
Yeah.
20th Century Fox was really proud of it and had a
Yeah.
rollout plan for like 3 more movies. And it was supposed to be the start of a franchise of the New Mutants. And
Sure. Yeah.
um, Disney didn't quite have the same vision for it.
Yeah.
And so because of that, they acquired the property, and then they were like, well, we don't know if we're even going to release it. So, like as someone who's like, I was so excited filming it, that the cast was great. I felt like I got the golden ticket. And then, I just felt like, I don't know if this movie is ever going to come out. And it was a really like disheartening thing to think like, oh, I just had my big break. And
Yeah.
then oh, maybe it's not going to be my big break, and back to the
Right.
drawing board. But I was so grateful that it ended up getting a theatrical release. I got to see it in a movie theater, which was like the coolest thing ever.
I
You work
bet.
on
Yeah.
something, and you're there for a long time, and you get to know the cast members and the crew, and you're all working really long hours to make this thing possible and happen. And then to see the magic of how it's all put together with the special effects, with the soundtrack, which
Yeah.
is so cool. And it just, there's no feeling like it when you get to sit there and, you get to see your performance, but you get to see the work of like hundreds of creative people,
Yeah.
making this movie happen. And you just feel such a sense of pride because you've worked next to the stunt people and the actors and, even the craft service people. You're like, this could not have happened if we weren't fed every day. And,
Yeah.
it's a very surreal feeling. And you really do become such a close-knit group of people. And so you're just like bursting with pride as you're sitting there watching it.
I bet. And you, like you said, after that long wait too, and that uncertainty of that wait, and wondering, because like you're so excited, like you just described, the movie wraps, and you're used to waiting months or a year or whatever it might be, but here it's years go by, and a studio gets sold, and Marvel's merging this and that, and it's like, what's going to happen? And then, like you said, to have it finally happen, and during the 2020 pandemic, of course, it's got to be, like you said, surreal, I imagine, but you got that moment of sitting in the theater and seeing it, and got to have that eventually. So it sounds like it was worth the wait, at least.
It was really funny. So I was living in New York at the time, like during the pandemic, which was like a whole nother story that we could talk about. But like the pandemic in New York was wild.
Yeah.
But they made a rule that in New York, in the state of New York, you couldn't go to a movie. Like those were some of the rules. And so Connecticut, which is not too far away, was playing the movie. And so I got like 15 of my closest friends. We rented a party bus. We all chipped in like $35, rented a party bus, drove to Connecticut to go to see the movie. And so I even brought a red carpet with me that we rolled out,
man.
and
That's awesome.
we had like a full experience. We tried to make do, and we had like glow sticks on the bus on the way home, and we were just having it like a good time.
Great.
And it's there is a little disappointment when you hope something will have a rollout, that we have no control as actors over how a production or a studio is going to handle a property. And it's really, it was a good lesson. And like, we have to create our own fun.
Yeah.
We have to create things to look forward to, because life isn't always going to literally roll out the red carpet for us. And so like, if you want a red carpet, roll it out yourself. If you want, a night to remember, sometimes you have to be the one to like, I could have sat in my room and been just like, I'm not going to even get to see it. But it was like, well, I could do that, or I could have a really fun night, and so, I just love that my friends rallied together. Everyone like dressed up in like weird outfits, were like red carpet, and it was a lot of fun.
Oh, that does sound like a lot of fun, and yeah, like you said, just making the best out of it, and making it your own, and yeah, that's the way to do it. Rolling out your own red carpet. I like that.
Yeah, you can't wait for other people to like make your life fun. It's
That's
like,
right.
if I want a fun life, like what would it take to make this a memorable night for me and my friends? And it ended up being so neat that I got to include so many friends. If the studio had done a red carpet or something, I might have been able to invite one person. And it was so fun to be able to include, so many of my friends who've been supportive of my journey along the way, all the ups and downs. And so it was cool to sit in a theater with all of them, and, just like cheering when the name came up on the credits. And, it was, we were all eating popcorn and nachos and just had a great time.
And probably with pandemic, probably wasn't a whole lot of other people there, so you kind of, it was almost like a private screening in a way, probably just for you guys. Like you rented out the theater just for you guys, almost, probably, I imagine, in 2020.
Yeah, I think that there might have been like four other people, like two sets of two in the theater. So it really was like our private screening, which was like kind of cool too.
Yeah.
But yeah, before Dark Harvest, I did the Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Okay, that's right. I forgot that
so,
came out before. And yes. Let's talk about that first, and getting that, because in addition to all, Halloween always on my brain, I'm a lifelong Star Wars geek, and just, I love the show and everything. And you're stepping into this iconic franchise here as the droid Ned-B on this Disney Plus series. And and it's Ewan McGregor reprising this iconic role that everybody loves and has been a part of, my life, my entire life. Like I said, I'm just, Star Wars has been a constant since before I have memory. It's like people ask, when did you see the first Star? I don't know, because I don't remember a time when I didn't know who Obi-Wan Kenobi and Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader were. I have no memory of pre-Star Wars. So yeah, what can you tell us about just getting that role and getting involved with the project, and then your actual time filming? It must have been another just surreal experience to go from, like you said, this Marvel X-Men world, and now you're here in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah, yeah. It really, after Marvel, you kind of you're just as actors, there's so much competition, and you're never guaranteed the next big news or good news. It's like we audition for a lot, we submit for a lot, and nothing is guaranteed. And so you just kind of think, well, maybe that was my taste. Maybe that was just the coolest taste to get to be involved with Marvel and get to be on set and experience that. And you hope that there's more, but there's no guarantee. And so when a franchise like Star Wars comes around and they're looking for something that's like within your wheelhouse, they wanted a tall, an impossibly tall robot, a droid, it says in the script. And I actually submitted for it. I think November of 2020 was the first time I submitted my information and said, "Hey, I'd like to throw my name in the hat
Yeah.
if you're still looking." And I didn't hear anything within like a month, and then 2 months go by, and so I was just like, okay, that's kind of the answer. They're probably already starting filming or the pre-production. They'd have to be building the costume,
Yeah.
and like 4 months go by, 5 months go by, and all of a sudden I get a call from one of the production coordinators, and she says like, "Hey, what's her availability for the next couple months?" And I was like, "Anything."
Yeah.
Like anything. And so we just started a conversation from there. I guess they were still looking. It was between me and one other guy, and they that job, they liked me, they liked my stats, they liked my audition, but they were worried. Ned-B is a very heavy costume. It's a physical. It was not CGI. It was like 100% physical,
Wow.
and so they were worried because I was thin that I wouldn't be strong enough to carry it for the days of shooting, because they're pretty intense. And so I went to the gym. This was still during kind of lockdown, and I videoed myself doing pull-ups and squats, and like show them that like I can do heavy weights. I can but one of my jokes is that like Ned-B really came down to like a pull-up competition. Just like who could do the most pull-ups, who could
Yeah.
like show the casting that it's like, hey, I'm skinny, but I'm like scrappy
Can
too.
support
And
the yeah.
yeah, so I really, like we sent that all in, and I was so excited. I really, really wanted it. And I don't know who the other actor was. Sometimes we know, like sometimes we're sitting in the same room, and so we can see like who we're up
Yeah.
against. But I've heard that he has done other things within the Star Wars universe before. And I remember hearing a conversation, one of the casting directors told me, they're like, when we presented you, you were just so excited to be a part of it that the director was like, well, we can work with this one guy who's like a surefire. We know that he's going to be amazing. Or we could work with the guy who's like really excited to be on set. And so they're like, let's work with the guy who's just like kind of bananas over there. So they took a risk on the new guy, and I'm really glad they did.
Oh man. Yeah. That sounds awesome. And again, paying off just you being you, it sounds like, coming in there and not being shy about your excitement, I guess. And but again, all that training and everything, I guess, coming into play too with I guess you did pass the pull-up tests.
Yeah.
And you were able to support it. So you said all that was a practical costume, and so you're playing a droid. If people didn't see it, you're playing a Star Wars droid, and so you're wearing all that. So I mean, how heavy was it? Do you think, or how I mean, it must have worn on you for hurt after a while.
It definitely, I can see why they were concerned.
Yeah.
It was not easy. So the company who made it, they're called Legacy, and they're kind of they're really known to be like the top tier like makers of things, and they're an incredible company to work for. So they fabricated the suit, and so they know tricks to keep it light. But when you're working with that much material, it's just going to get heavy because there's layers upon layers. You have like a first layer that has to buckle into the structured layer, and then that layer, the armor goes on, and just none of it is really heavy individually. But when you start adding the pieces on, and then after about 15 minutes, you're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's sinking. Yeah.
I had there I they never told me how much it weighed, and that was probably wise. But I had two handlers on that one who would put the costume on, Vicky and Tracy, and they they know way too much about me. We would spend all day together and just commiserate together, and they would make sure that everything looked exactly like it needed to look, to be picture ready, and they were truly incredible. But it would take two of them to like lift the chess piece on, and different things. Like one
Man.
person probably couldn't do it. So
Wow.
it was kind of a heavy thing. But they would do the best they could to communicate with production, saying like how one of the problems is they always want you to be ready
Yeah.
before, because they don't want to wait for you to get in the costume, because that costume took about 45 minutes to put on.
Man.
As they got familiar with it, probably about a half hour, but at the
Hmm.
beginning, so before Ned-B was needed, they would have to be like, okay, we need like 45 minutes to know. And that's kind of hard in the movie business to predict time, because a scene
Yeah.
could, a small scene, you're like, oh, that will take, 15 minutes to shoot. That can turn into 3 hours if something goes wrong, or, the lighting's not quite right, or, whatever.
Hmm.
Um, and so, they can get you in the suit because they're like, oh, you're going to be needed in 15 minutes. And so you're, scrambling, and then you just sit there in this heavy costume, and maybe you don't shoot for 3 hours.
Yeah.
So it can really kind of mess with your head a little bit. You just the psychology of, it just can wear your body out. But Vicky, she came up with this system that we called the jacuzzi, just because it was so relaxing. But how to like take some of the weight off the chest piece, like if I leaned up against this chair, and so she made like this makeshift like support device that would take some of the weight off. And
Yeah.
I don't know what I would have done if she hadn't been clever. It's really, I owe her like some chiropractic bills, because she saved me some good body work.
I bet. Yeah. I mean, just imagining, like you said, all those different layers and each one not weighing too much, but yeah, all of that put together, I could see how that, and then for hours, yeah, that would definitely wear on anybody, I think. So I could see their reason for concern too, I think. Um, were you always a Star Wars fan like myself? Did you grow up watching the movies and all this? Was it as big a deal for you as it would be for us to be on that set?
It was, I remember playing as a kid with Star Wars action figures. One of my best friends, Stephen Tate, he's like a jazz musician up in Canada right now. But we grew up together, and I remember my first exposure to Star Wars was over at his house. He had all the action figures, and we would
Yeah.
like play with the ships. And, I wasn't as, I didn't grow up in a Star Wars house, but I
Mhm.
was like Star Wars adjacent. When I remember going over there and just loved playing with like the Ewoks and
Yeah.
Chewbacca, and
Yep.
just all these like figurines. And so I definitely had like a respect for it, and understood the like grandness of this world. Like I
Yeah.
love what you said. Like I don't remember when it just was always in my life.
Yeah.
And there's so many, since being a part of it, I've got to meet, so I've been like kind of thrust into the Star Wars world and going to the conventions, and I got to go to Star Wars Celebration, and just to
Man.
see the like sacredness of this universe, and it's multi-generational.
Yeah.
Fathers have passed it down to their kids, and their kids have passed it down to their kids now, and
Yeah.
it really is this multi-generational American lore. It's so cool, and I'm so honored that I get to have been a fly on the wall and
Yeah.
seen like behind the scenes, and like some of the scenes that I got to shoot were wild, like 50 plus stormtroopers running around shooting at me, and I'm on the other side like with a big blaster shooting back. And I mean, it it felt like when I was little in my imagination, like you're
Yeah.
fighting, but all of a sudden it's like playing laser tag as an adult. Your adrenaline gets going. You're holding a
Yeah.
blaster, they're holding a blaster. They have like on set, practical explosions going off. So it's like the guns are really going, and you feel that sense of like adrenaline and danger. And it's so fun. Like I felt like the biggest kid on set, getting to just to be a part of that. And of course, working with Ewan McGregor, he is as cool as you hope he is. Like as cool as
Awesome.
like in your imagination. They say don't meet your heroes,
Yeah.
but he's one that you can meet because he's so down to earth. He knows everyone's name. He's just chill,
Yeah.
and yet when it's time to work, he's so professional and can just like he like it just I don't know zones
Yeah.
into like what he has to do at that moment. And it was really cool getting to watch him. There's a scene where, spoiler alert, Ned-B saves him from Darth Vader's fire, and like he like goes in, and um, in the actual cut, it's just kind of blurry and you can't really see what's happening. But um, we shot this scene of me having to carry. They wanted me to carry him like a baby, but I'm already wearing this like gigantic suit that's like really
Oh
really
yeah.
heavy, and then like having him in it, it's like it wasn't going to work. And so we just like laughed and laughed and laughed. So there's flames around us, and I'm like trying to like scoop up Ewan McGregor, and he's laughing. He's like, "I'm so sorry." He like whispering to me, he's like, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." And, then we tried one where like his feet were on the ground. I was like dragging him, and so we tried it several different ways. And I remember the director giving him notes. She's like, "Ewan, it looks like you're helping too much, and they're like, we just need you to be heavier. Like, can you look heavier?" And anyhow, so we just had a great time. And yeah, it just being on set with him and Indira Varma, who is
Mhm.
she like we were kind of a team together.
Yeah.
Like she's royalty in my mind. She has such a warmth to her, and her and Ewan in between takes were so funny. They were just like little stand-up comedians back and forth. And I just felt all my scenes were with Ewan. And so that was like so cool. We shot for 3 months, so I just got to be.
Man.
It's funny. I am only on 11 pages, so it's not like a huge
Mhm.
role, but just the way we filmed, I was there for 3 months, and just getting to, um, I don't know, you develop a rapport and you get to see their work ethic. And I was so honored to get to see behind the scenes for this like untouchable franchise. Star Wars. It's Star Wars. Like it blew my mind every day. I was like, I get to be involved with Star Wars. Like it really it blew my mind.
And I mean, not to play favorites, but I mean, it's not just any Star Wars. I mean, you've got Obi-Wan Kenobi, Darth Vader. You're doing, like you said, scenes with the two of these iconic characters. I mean, you've got, I mean, Ewan's there, like you said. You're working with him pretty much regular. You guys are laughing as you're filming. I mean, it's yeah, not to say that any Star Wars is less than, but I mean, this was a big series and a big deal for fans and just for the whole franchise. And yeah, to have such a significant role, I mean, it's clearly not lost on me, and I don't think it's lost on you on the size of this.
I remember reading the script, and he's a loader droid, and he's just
Yeah.
he doesn't talk. He's just very but as I was reading, I was like, wait, I think he saves Obi-Wan Kenobi's life. And then, a few pages later, I'm like, wait, I think he saves his life twice. It's like this is the coolest role ever. Like I'm responsible for helping save Obi-Wan Kenobi's life. Like there would not be an Obi-Wan Kenobi if there wasn't a Ned-B. So
Yeah, I mean, what would the galaxy have become had Ned-B not been there? That's a great point. I mean,
It's a
and that
great little point.
and it's a great tradition in Star Wars of the droids like R2D2 saving the day all the time. It's kind of an unwritten rule in Star Wars that without the droids, who knows what would have happened.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it was that experience, but it was also behind the scenes. It was really stressful because I had this is one of those like actor problems. You go through seasons where you have no work, and then you have seasons where you get like multiple offers at one time, and you have to turn something down because you're already worried. You're like, can you just ask me again in 6 months? Because I know I will have nothing going on. But so Dark Harvest and Obi-Wan Kenobi wanted to film at the same time.
Right.
And so like here I'm offered, Star Wars, which is an incredible franchise. And then I'm offered like this role to be Sawtooth Jack, in MGM, like an MGM feature film, which is like a huge, both of them are like huge opportunities for me. And they called around the same time, like within probably a 2 week time frame. I was going back and forth with both
Wow.
productions. And I was like, well, whichever one offers to me first, like if I get an offer, I'm just going to say yes to that one, and then I'll have to tell the other one, I'm so sorry, I can't do this. But so I got the Star Wars offer first, but as we were negotiating contract, the Dark Harvest came in too, and so I was like, maybe there's a world where both of this will work out, and um, so I had an end date. It was like the 20th of July or the 20th of August, I think, that we were supposed to stop shooting. And the very next day, the 21st, was the first day Dark Harvest was going to shoot. And I was like, there is no way this is going to work. There's no way either of them are going to sign off because, they never finish on time anyway. Everything takes longer than they anticipate. And so Dark Harvest isn't going to want to be at Star Wars's beck and call. Like if Star Wars needs 2 extra weeks, that's going to push Dark Harvest late. And anyhow, so they, for whatever reason, they both agreed to like, yeah, we'll work it out. And I was a nervous wreck as we got closer to the end of Obi-Wan Kenobi filming, just being like, we are running behind. We are running behind. And so like I know like I'm looking at how many scenes we have yet to film, knowing like kind of how long things are taking. And I'm like, oh no, Dark Harvest is gonna say no, and I really want to do Dark Harvest. So it was really nerve-wracking to see how the puzzle pieces came in. But they ended up Dark Harvest, they had some we shot in Canada, and they had different protocols with Canadians and foreigners coming into the country because of COVID.
Yeah.
But because of that, they had a 2 week buffer window because of COVID, and because of that, I was able to get into the country
Mhm.
with enough time to quarantine before the shooting started. So it ended up working out, but it was a really it's funny. It was such a season of abundance, but it was stressful because you didn't know if it was all going to work out. Now I know it all works out, but when I was in that moment, oh man, it was so stressful. Like thinking, like, am I going to lose this huge contract? And you know, um, anyhow, it was really it was like a fun stress. But I'm so glad both of them worked out, and it was so amazing to be able to transition right from Obi-Wan Kenobi and then to get whisked up to Canada to then jump into this world of Norman Partridge's
Yes.
like Dark Harvest, which is I mean, such a cool intellectual property. Just the idea of Sawtooth and that whole culture and lure around that is so cool.
Absolutely. And yeah, I mean, just to comment on what you just said, that is mind-boggling to me that you're here and it's kind of the two biggest things of your career so far and these amazing opportunities like you said and that it comes down to the wire and you can't even hardly process what's happening in real time probably because you're thinking about what's going to happen tomorrow, or what email is going to come in now, or is this offer going to work out, or is Disney just going to say no, we're not going to work with MGM, or vice versa? I mean, because that could have happened too. The studios could have just said, no, we don't care what they're doing. But the fact that they were willing to work with you, and I guess quarantine in this case, work to your benefit a little bit. It came down
Yeah.
to it. The 2-week quarantine making the difference, it sounds like. So, but
It is so funny, just like the stress of blessing,
yeah.
It's like, if I listen back to this conversation, I'm like, wait, Dustin, are you complaining that you have two jobs? It's like, well, that's like every actor's like greatest problem.
Like you said, the stress of blessings. Yeah, it's like I like that. That's but I hear you though. I get it because yeah. I mean, you work so hard, and here you are, and you want to make the most of both. So it did work out, of course. It worked out, and so now you move from Ned-B and Galaxy Far Far Away, like you said, into Norman Partridge's novel, and it's the early 1960s in the film, and it's Halloween, and I confess I haven't read the novel yet myself. I do need to. The movie has made me say I have to now. But as soon as I read the synopsis, and I think I've read like the first, I think they've got like the first chapter or so online as a preview, and I've read that. But I was immediately excited for this movie because it's even just in the synopsis, they're presenting kind of this new mythology that it's old school 60s Halloween, which itself carries a certain nostalgia, and it's pre like commercialization in a way of Halloween. So it's like an older Americana type Halloween, where it's not all superheroes and Star Wars and stuff like that, which is fine, but this is before a lot of that. And then you're in this town, this unnamed town, with this whole kind of unique mythology wrapped around it, and wrapped around this character, this creature, I guess, of Sawtooth Jack. So that's my little recap of where I was before I saw the movie, and then watching it, I was just really blown away at how many different levels I liked it on. Because it is emotional. There's some romance in there. There's a lot of just commentary on like, coming of age, young boys, especially young boys of that era, father and son stuff going on, dynamics like that. And then, of course, the icing on top of all of it is this glorious Halloween atmosphere. I call it Hallosphere, but it's just dripping with all this Hallosphere in literally every frame, and it's all based around Halloween. So just to backtrack a little bit, walk us into your entry into this. Now you got the role, and you come up there, and obviously not a whole lot of prep time, I guess, for you, because you're going right from Obi-Wan, like you said, the next day into this. I mean, had you read the novel at this time? What were your thoughts going into this?
So, yeah, when I got and this was one of those reputation emails, the producer of Dark Harvest is friends with one of the producers from the Marvel film, and she was looking for the Sawtooth Jack character, and so she called her producer friends and was like, "Hey, do you have anyone who fits this bill?" And the producer of Marvel was like, "Hey, we worked with this tall, skinny guy. He's great to work with. Like he's kind of like he'll do anything. He's not real picky. Like he does some of his own stunts. Like
Yeah.
he's willing to be traumatized for a paycheck." Um, and and so she reached out, but again, it was one of those were one of those reputation letters that being a decent human pays off, and it just, there's so many people in the business who can be divas, and it just that does not serve you well. Like, to be a person that people like to work with serves you well, and I just think in any industry that you're in, it's
Yeah.
like you want to work with people who you want to work with.
Right.
Anyhow, so I get the call, and they tell me what it's for. I have the conversation with the producer. It sounds like a really cool project. I don't know the novel at this point. And so she says, you know, like if the dates work out, and I'm like, they kind of do, you know, holding my hand a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
I was honest with her because I didn't want to waste her time, but I just said, hey, this is, I'm I'm still in negotiations with my contract for Star Wars, and this is a huge opportunity for me. I would love to do, but this project sounds amazing. Right now, the dates do work. I would love to, you know, talk further about it. So she gets me. I know in about a week I'm going to have um, an interview audition with David Slade, who is the like director of this film, and he is such a weird visionary. Like his mind doesn't work like anyone else's mind I've ever met. Like he is such a unique, like dark, very disturbed, knows what he wants. Like he's very such an intriguing person. And I had watched some interviews with him and kind of did some research on like who he was, and I was like, oh, he did Hard Candy, he did, you know, 28 Days of Nights, and you know, some of these films that are like really really cool. And I was like, oh my god, one of the Twilight movies, he did the second one. And I was like, oh man, I'd love to work with him and just kind of see how he works and how he processes things, and all of that. So I was like, yeah, I'm totally down for this. Um, so in between that week, I got to hold my hands on the novel, and I was able to look at that. And it actually maybe it's less than 200 pages. It's a very easy read, and it's so cool. Just like the concept is like so very cool. I will say that the the screenplay adapted by Michael Gillio
Yes.
is so cool. Like he fleshes out, I think, like the best parts of it.
Hmm.
Um, I like the screenplay. The concept that Norman came up with is incredible, but I think the screenplay is very smart. Um, and I just when I actually read the script, I was like, oh, this is cool. Like how he interprets things and how he
Yeah.
chose to tell the story is really cool. And then David Slade, the director, has his own spin on things, and he kind of mixed things up and was like, no, we're just jumping into the story. And, you know, like he's like, we're just going to startle people with information. And like, all right, okay, here we go.
Hmm.
So it really was like a collaborative effort. But yeah, the story and the lure is really cool. But so when they did cast me, um, I worked with a guy named Terry Notary, and if you go on IMDb, like he did every Planet of the Apes movie. He does all the choreography, movement choreography for Marvel films, all these action films. Like he is the movement coach of movement coaches in Hollywood. He's incredible. But they hired him to be like the Sawtooth movement master. And so the two of us, in between shooting days of Star Wars, would meet at a studio for hours and just like talk about. David Slade had this thing. He's like, I want Sawtooth to move like ink and water. I just want it to be ink and water. And so like Terry and I would like, what does that, you know, what does that mean to be ink and water? And just to really, he didn't want just another zombie. You know, he
Yeah.
wanted it to be something very intriguing. And so I worked with Terry extensively, the two of us on in between shooting days for Obi-Wan Kenobi. So my body is just like exhausted from carrying this big suit. And like the next day I'd go in a studio for, you know, 6 hours and be working with Terry and, you
Wow.
know, just figuring this all out. So it
Yeah.
was really, by the time I got to set, I felt very prepared with what the character was and who Sawtooth Jack needed to be
Yeah.
in the landscape of this like cool 60s Halloween scape that you're talking about. So starting filming, I felt, you know, there's an old saying that says, with preparation comes confidence. And because I had worked so much with Terry and David Slade was in on some of those conversations, he came to the studio a couple times. We had kind of done some homework creating the character. So by the time we were shooting, we kind of knew what Sawtooth Jack was going to be doing. And so I was so excited to, well, then the whole other conversation is aesthetically, what does he look like? And
Yeah.
the process of becoming Sawtooth Jack is a whole other layer on, you know, outside of his movement. But yeah, it was so cool. Well, I was so excited to get to Canada and start working on it.
Well, and I do want to talk some about the outer look of it all, but I that's fascinating to me again that as you're playing Ned-B and you're shooting Star Wars on your off days, you're already rehearsing and becoming Sawtooth and figuring out how you're going to embody this character. And I follow you on Instagram, and I've seen some of the behind the scenes stuff you posted since the film came out, and you shared a little video clip of some of that work you were doing with Terry that you're talking about, and it's not even in the costume yet, but you're just kind of just feeling it out and how it's going to be. And fascinating to me that that was happening weeks ahead of time, and that you guys were, and it was important to the studio and David to get that work in, because I mean clearly you're not just showing up, putting on the suit and doing stunts. They're hiring you. They want you to be this character and to bring a performance, which I responded to and found in the again, I just love so many things about the movie, but Sawtooth is not your he's not your typical creature that you get in a lot of these things. He is I think it's fair to say, and again, spoiler alert, but he's a sympathetic character, kind of harkening back to the old like Frankenstein's monster and those type, creature from the Black Lagoon almost, where they're not really the bad guys so much in those stories as much as some of the human characters a lot of times in those old classic monster stories. And I feel like in that respect, Sawtooth has a little bit of that comic. And like you said, the movements are just so unique and different, and his look. You worked with Vincent Van Dyke and his team, and Gary Tunnicliffe, who we met a few years ago at a convention, and he couldn't talk about Dark Harvest. Y'all had already filmed it, and he wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about it, and we're like talking in code, and he's like, I can't say anything, and I'm like, oh, but it's gonna be. He's like, oh, you're gonna. Yeah. We're like, it was just so like, oh, we're gonna, and it was like still a while before it would be released, but and these guys, we're fans of. We know their names from just a ton of awesome genre favorites of ours over the years, not the least of which a couple Michael Myers movies along the way, among others. But yeah, talk to us a little bit about the look, the thought that went into the look, and I guess what it took to get into that every day for you, because I imagine that was a process and an ordeal in itself.
Yeah, it was. I am so glad that I had gone through the Star Wars first, because there was a certain pressure and a certain uncomfortability that kind of trained me for the
Yeah,
uncomfortability of Sawtooth. Very different. Sawtooth was not heavy, but it was a 4.5 hour makeup process before the day starts to get everything glued on. And then at the end of the day, it's a 2 hour removal. And so that's a big chunk of time to add
yeah,
to an already stressful day. And the producers were so kind. They said, we haven't really done monster movies before, and so we really want to make sure, as much as they could, they would try to schedule my scenes like every other day, because we end up, me and like Gary, and the makeup team, we'd kind of be working like 20-hour days by the time
yeah.
we get in the makeup, we film for at least 12 hours, we have the 2 hour removal. It's like a 20-hour day, so to do that back to back is almost like impossible. And so they would really try to, like, maybe every other day we'd shoot Sawtooth stuff, and the producers, I've heard like some actual horror stories like that's the real horror movie.
Yeah.
But these producers were like super thoughtful. So I was really grateful. I felt very taken care of. But man, this design was gnarly. It's like,
Yeah,
it's a rotting corpse that,
yeah,
they put a pumpkin head on, and then it like rots and molds into this human being, who then has consciousness for the first time. And he doesn't, like, Sawtooth doesn't really remember what's going on, but everyone's trying to kill him. And so he has kind of like a toddler understanding of things, like
yeah.
he just, like, he sees fire and he's like, he's inquisitive and curious, but people are like endangering him and, like, beating him up. And that makes him like reactionary in like a rageful way. And so he has this like fire in him, that's be, like everyone's trying to kill him, and so like he's like trying to figure out what's happening, but he just wants someone to help him. Like that's his like his main motivation is like help me, like he just like ah. And so any like jump scare or anything really comes from the place of him just like help, and but that's perceived by the humans as threatening, and so they respond, and so it's this never ending like one up until the moment where we kind of see the twist in the story.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh wait, one of the main character kind of gets Sawtooth's attention in a way that's not violent, and then the story starts unraveling from there, like the backstory of like what's actually happening. But yeah, visually this design, Vincent Studio, who came up with the actual practical how it was going to work, top tier. They're amazing. They do so many really really cool realistic builds of things. I think they were such a great choice for Sawtooth. Um, their creativity, and then just their use of smart materials is great. And Gary, you have
Yeah.
interviewed him, I guess, so like to know Gary is to love Gary. He is so funny, and
Yeah.
if you're going to be like strapped in a makeup chair for 5 hours, like why not have a stand-up comedian, being the
Right.
one gluing everything to you? So we just laughed and laughed, and we just had such a great time. And he is a dear man, and I'm just so glad that I got to meet him. And we have a real special bond, like going through that experience together. There was times where we would get into the makeup, a 4.5 hour process, and then before we'd go to set, they're like, okay, we're just going to shoot a scene or two. And that turned into like 8 hours, still haven't worked. 10 hours, still haven't worked. 12 hours. We're just sitting there in the
And you're just
makeup.
sitting there in the makeup that whole time, ready to go. But
Yeah, there was a few times where, and then they just wouldn't get to us, and then Gary would have to take it all off. And
oh,
it's like Gary said, it's like asking master baker to like make you a wedding cake, and you make this beautiful cake, and they say, you know what, we're not going to get married today. We'll
yeah.
just throw it away, and then but you can make another one tomorrow. And it's like this great work of art that like no one will ever get to see. And if you go on Gary's Instagram, he has a couple videos of days where we're like showing the makeup job that no one will ever see
Oh,
because
yeah.
because like they didn't get to me. And sometimes it's a great lesson. Nothing is personal.
Mhm.
Production isn't doing that to be cruel. they
Yeah.
they just don't have a crystal ball. Like if
Right.
they knew they weren't going to get to me, they wouldn't have had us get ready. They really thought that they were going to get we were going to get ready that day. um so it's like it's not a nothing is personal, and it would be easy in those circumstances to feel like it is,
Yeah.
there is a part of it that is frustrating, but it's also like it's not malicious, it's not cruel, nothing's personal. And so you could just in that situation just kind of laugh it off and what a wild day. I got paid to sit around in like the coolest makeup job in the world, and
Yeah.
it's probably the easiest day of work I've ever done.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, I mean, I guess you're gonna get in the makeup no matter what. I mean, it was gonna happen whether they were shooting or not. So I mean, I guess it's like you said, you gotta look at it like that, and look at it as an easy day, not you know, um, and it is a very unique and different makeup, like you said. It's a corpse, but a pumpkin head that kind of becomes humanized as it goes, and but you are able to bring some emotion out in that, and I guess a lot of that goes back to working with Terry in the beginning. But what were they able to do with that head, I guess the mask and everything? I mean, were they was some of that animatronic too, or was all that you being able to like move around? How did that work?
So in the costume, when you're looking at it,
Yeah.
um, Sawtooth's left eye is mine, the right
Okay.
eye is fake.
Okay.
And then because they wanted the eyes to be a little further apart, so this is
Yeah.
like my real eye, and then this eye is like fabricated over here and it's
Okay.
fake. And then the teeth are like prosthetics that you put in, and they're just huge and they're so expressive. And
Yeah.
David Slade loved everything that could be communicated with these teeth. And so a lot of the emotion comes from the mouth. And then of course body language and
Yeah.
posture and just the effect of that. But and then there's some special effects that are added. There's a couple scenes where they make my neck super thin, and the shoulders become a little more pointy than they actually were. So there's some special effects that are
Hmm.
done like after that. They did a great job of blending the real with the fake to make it very fanciful. But yeah,
Oh,
Vincent Van Dyke, like his studio is incredible, the work that they do. And then Gary, his execution. Normally there would probably be like two or three people on a character like Sawtooth, but
mhm.
Gary just wanted to do it all. He's like, I don't know if it's my ego or if it's just, like but I want to say that I did Sawtooth. And so he glued everything, he painted everything. And yeah, he really is, he's so good at what he does.
Oh man, well, yeah, he is awesome, and like I said, we've loved his work for many years, and this is no exception. And the film, I mean, it is open for more stories. I mean, it leaves it open. Sawtooth could go on, and I love the ending actually. Again, it was like a cherry on top of what was already. I was already sold before even that final scene, but then they add that final scene at the end, and so yeah, maybe we can get some more Sawtooth. But I feel like this is a movie that you know audiences like myself, they're gonna discover it gradually over the years as it's streaming, as they're looking for Halloween related films, and I think they're gonna go in with curiosity and come away with like, oh my god, I'm watching that one every October. I'm this is like a go to. That's just my personal prediction of what's gonna how it's gonna happen. And I mentioned the Hallowsphere that I say this might have the most pumpkins, jack o' lanterns of any movie I can think of. And I guess I should ask David Slade, but was all that real on set? Are any of the pumpkins CGI'd in? Because I was literally watching it at times thinking, I wonder if they CGI'd some because there's so many. I mean, I'm always looking for jack o' lanterns in a Halloween movie, and sometimes, not to name any names, but some movies are set during Halloween and they have very few jack o' lanterns in the film, and you're like, well, this is not a problem with Dark Harvest. There's so many jack o' lanterns, and I love it at it. But I did find myself wondering, like, were those actual practical carved jack o' lanterns out there, or was any of that CGI? What was all that like?
I love that, like, you notice that. I mean, because it's true, like, there, there were, they're all physical, hundreds, hundreds. The art department was going crazy. I mean, I honestly, I remember just like being on set sometimes thinking, like, how did they have time? I know how long it
Yeah,
takes to carve a pumpkin. Like, like, did they get like the local high school and just say like everyone carve three pumpkins? Like I mean, it's amazing. The art department on Dark Harvest was like top tier. Like they were doing the absolute most. They had a whole like U-Haul truck that had all the pumpkins in it, and then so anytime that we would go to a new scene, they
yeah,
would just fill up this like U-Haul, bring the pumpkin truck, and like unload the pumpkin. So they're the same pumpkins in every scene, but
yeah.
there's hundreds, and each of them were specific and carved by hand and had a little light in them, and yeah, it really creates that Halloween. I saw some reviews that were like, it's like unbelievable. Like no town would have that many pumpkins. I'm like, but this is a haunted town in the 60s that revolves around,
Yeah,
Halloween. Yeah,
their whole town revolves around Halloween, and yeah, I think in this scenario they definitely would. I mean, and that church. I mean, just all the like the pumpkins kind of leading. They were almost like a base for the church. Almost, it was just awesome to see. And something that we just
yeah.
don't see enough of. Again, I'm biased with Halloween, obviously, but I'm like, man, that I love that. I love that. It was just the whole thing was almost every frame.
The production design, I just think is so beautiful, and the way that David Slade shot the movie too.
Yeah.
It could have been Norman Partridge's book. There's moments that are campy. They're like super like corny. Like Sawtooth Jack can talk, and he can drive a car, and
Oh
there's
wow.
certain things that like so. I was really glad for the adaptation that they're like, you know what, let's put some boundaries around what he can and can't
Yeah.
do. And I just think the direction they took the film is just beautiful. Like every frame could be a postcard. Like I want a coffee table book of,
Yeah.
Dark Harvest, just because everything is shot and framed in such a beautiful, like this is a funny word to use, but it's very romantic. Like
Yeah.
there's something that's very romantic about each scene, even if it's, not a romantic scene. It's very beautiful. And I think David Slade and the cinematographers and the people who framed
Yes.
everything did such an incredible job. But yeah, it has a very Halloweeny feel, in almost every frame, and it's really cool.
And I again I've said through Halloween Daily News that it earns that they're not just doing it to, but because that's so central to the story. Norman's story, it's all based around this holiday and the harvest, and then as the twists come out and the secrets of the town, it's all very much based on that, and I just love it because it's using the holiday and some of the traditions we all know and love, and just taking it in this wild new direction that I just think is so fun. I mean, it was just a fun experience, and yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with how much emotion is in it. Like you said, and there is romance. I get what you're saying about the look of it has this kind of romantic look in a way, and but there's even a romance with our two main characters, in the middle of all this craziness too. Just a lot going on with the movie, and for that reason, I do think that it's going to be discovered by audiences over time, and they're gonna I think in a few years we'll be seeing Sawtooth on T-shirts and stuff like that. It's just gonna seep into the community. Maybe gradually, maybe not like a because again, this was another one. I guess we could talk about that after you wrapped, you had to sit and wait for release for a while. I know because I was waiting for release. I know you guys had wrapped, and I'm just waiting. I'm looking at MGM like, come on, when you gonna release Dark Harvest? What's going on? What's going on? And there was like no word. And then all of a sudden, last year, it was like, boom, here's a trailer, here's a release date, boom, it's out, and there we go. Maybe you can comment a little bit on that another wait, another bit of uncertainty maybe for you. Like, are people gonna see this amazing performance?
Yeah, 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 it was definitely everything you just said. It was another nerve-wracking experience where you film something, you're excited about it, and then
Yeah.
MGM was bought by Amazon. So it was
Right.
another
Yeah.
merger. The first one was Marvel and
Another.
Disney, and then this one, I was like,
This is
nah.
a trend now, right? This.
I'm like cursed. I was like, don't hire me in the movie. It won't come out. We'll have a delayed release. Um, but yeah, so it was another one. We were so, as we were filming this, so we were all quarantined in Canada together. And so we were all living at like hotels and different things like in the downtown area of Winnipeg, where we filmed. And so we could only hang out with each other because we were being tested. So, we couldn't really go other places. And so it was like a summer camp experience. Like all the guys, all the young guys who, are playing the high school kids. And
Yeah.
we just ran around like Winnipeg like crazy. And everything was like a night shoot, basically. And so we were always filming at night. So on days when we weren't shooting, we wanted to keep that schedule. So we'd sleep during the day and then get up at night.
Yeah.
Well, everything is closed except all your friends. And so like we just like hang out at each other's hotel rooms and just like run around. It was so fun. It was like a wild summer camp, and we just had it was such a fun time filming. And we just became really close. And so we, in a text thread, we are just like so excited for the movie to come out. And then 2022 comes when it should be released, and we're like in July, we're like looking, okay, it's about like a couple weeks out, we should be seeing a trailer or something, and nothing drops. And we're like, oh no, what's going on? And then it's getting closer to Halloween, still no trailer, no poster, it's not on the MGM website. It's not on Amazon's website. Like we have no idea what's going on. And all of us are just like, oh no, are we ever going to see this movie? And so our hearts start sinking, and it's that feeling of like, maybe nothing is guaranteed. Like maybe this is one of those movies that gets shot and never gets seen. And we're so proud of the work that we did on it. And so then, like one or two of like the kids will like reach out to the producer and be like, "What's going on? Are we going to see the movie?" And, the producer were like, "We can't say anything, but we're hoping that it will have a release." And so we're nervous. And the good thing is Amazon really liked it. Like they saw the value of what it was, and they were like really excited to, in everything that they procured from MGM.
Yeah.
It took Amazon a minute to like sift through everything because they were getting hundreds and hundreds of titles, and so I think that's why it didn't have a 22 release. It was the later, but
Yeah.
we're just grateful that it ended up getting seen. We got a preview, got a trailer in 2023. We were like super excited about it all. And I wanted to say real quick,
Yeah.
one of the reasons in some of your Halloween movies that you don't have as many pumpkins or there might not be Halloween stuff is because they're filmed in like February
That's
or
true. Yeah.
March, and to even like Dark Harvest, they planted their own cornfield. Like some of those shots of the cornfields that are miles and
Yeah.
miles and miles, they planted like I don't know how many acres, but like hundreds of acres of
Wow.
corn themselves, because
Wow.
there was no corn that was going to be high enough when they needed to shoot, because we were shooting like early summer or
Yeah.
like late summer, and that's the harvest hasn't come yet. And so even like
Yeah.
finding the pumpkins and finding the cornfields, like they had to be thinking like, okay, we have to try to have a pumpkin harvest before pumpkins are actually harvesting in order to have all these pumpkins, in order to have the cornfields. And
Mhm.
so, I mean, it takes a lot of planning to get a Halloween movie if you're not shooting during Halloween.
Yeah.
But then that's probably why sometimes you don't see all the Halloween that you want in some of these
Oh,
horror
definitely.
films.
I think you're right. Yeah. Yeah. Little pumpkins a little bit harder to come by in February. At least
Yeah,
actual ones.
yeah. Or if you're like shooting in April, it's like
Right. Yeah.
you
July
can't, yeah,
even.
you
Yeah.
can't find a pumpkin anywhere. So, but yeah,
Yeah.
we're so glad it came out. And I'm just so grateful for channels like yours that like
Yeah.
speak to a fan base that love this type of things, and
Yeah.
there wasn't a huge marketing campaign. They dropped a trailer, and that
Yeah.
was kind of about it. That there wasn't a huge rollout plan. Like I just did Dark Harvest, or sorry, Rebel Moon,
Yeah.
and that had like a global press tour, and like
Yeah.
everyone has heard about Rebel Moon because of the work that Netflix did, where we did not have that kind of publicity. So we're so grateful for the grassroots, like the Halloween Daily News, and channels like yours that love Halloween, that love horror movies, that are talking about it. And even the ones who are negative about it, they're still talking about it, they're still getting
Yeah.
it, maybe curiosity, and someone might say, "Oh, I want to see that movie. I wonder, the person didn't like it, but maybe I will," and just
Yeah.
that buzz is so important. So I want to say thank you just
Oh
for
yeah.
just talking about it, and just getting the word out, because we love it so much and we want other people to like fall in love with these characters. I want a sequel so bad. Like the way that
Yeah.
the first one ends, it like there I remember having conversations with the writer. I was like, "So what is the sequel?" And we would just be like talking back and forth, and he was like sharing his ideas, and I was like, you just remember thinking, "Oh, that's a good movie." It's
Yeah.
like I was like, maybe someday we'll see a sequel of what happened after.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I love the way it ends, and I think it's set up perfectly to continue the story if if MGM sees fit. And I like your idea of, yeah, we need like a coffee table behind the scenes book. So MGM, maybe for this Halloween, the anniversary of the release, just throwing it out there, MGM, if anybody's out there listening or whatever, or around the time you announce the sequel, that'd be cool. Put out the Blu-ray with some behind the scenes stuff. I don't know, just throwing it
we
out there.
we
We'd be here for it.
we shot some amazing behind the scenes stuff. We had a
I
whole
bet.
like crew doing it, and I hope someday some of those interviews are seen, some of the behind the scenes stuff, because there's some really fun, insightful interviews with the directors and the creative team, the actors. They got some really great footage of just the process of making this film, and yeah, I hope that the audiences get to see that. I want to see it.
Yeah. Well, that's the only thing, you know, in the current age of streaming is not everything gets a physical release or not right away. So, you know, fingers crossed for that because I'm a big physical media fan and I love those bonus features. You know, that's one of the things aside from just being a collector and whatever, but I love the director's commentaries and all that stuff. So that's why one of the reasons I love having these conversations is I get to get that, you know, on a different level with people that I admire that have done awesome projects that I love like this. So this is like getting my own behind the scenes
Yes.
commentary with you. It's even better than what they could put on the Blu-ray, I think. But and again, like you said, I mean, we were still in the strike, I think, when it was released, or just coming out of it, or maybe I think the writers had ended, but the actors were still on strike. I think when the film did finally get released, and then a few weeks later the strike did end. But again, another reason why I guess you couldn't, and the cast and David couldn't do a lot of promotion that maybe would have been. I mean, I don't know if they would have done the global tour, you know, like Netflix did for Rebel Moon, but you know, even that I'm sure contributed to like couldn't really talk about, you know, and like you and I had gone back and forth in the early days, like, okay, when the time's right, let's talk about this, and but it's out now, and again, I do think people are going to discover it and really be impressed by it, and yeah, I'm looking for a sequel too. I think it'd be great. Sawtooth, I think he's a new horror icon, a new Halloween icon for us. You know, I mean, there's not enough of those, so there's always room for more, and I think Sawtooth is up there. What was your reaction when, you know, now all this time passes, the film's finally released, and you watched the whole finished film yourself for the first time? What was your reaction?
I loved it.
Yeah.
You know, like I described before, you know, you become so close with all the creatives on the set, with the actors, and you know, you really are such it's such a film is such a collaborative art. And so sitting there and just seeing the final product of this like art piece that so many people contributed to, you feel so proud of, like, you know, even just seeing the
Yeah.
pumpkins, you're like, I know what it
Yeah.
took to get all of those pumpkins like in that truck to every location. And
Yeah.
you know, you feel proud of the way that it turns out. And you know, there is a mystery involved because you created this art, you spent months making it, but you've never seen the final product. And so there's a lot of surprises, like sitting there, seeing how it all comes together, what takes they chose, what takes they didn't. Like there are scenes that we filmed a Sawtooth Jack that didn't make it into the final cut. And I'm like, oh,
Mm.
that's how are they going to work around not having that scene? And, you know, just
Yeah.
different there, you know, there's just the choices that they're making. And you're like, oh, so there's a lot of surprises, like as a, sometimes as an actor, you'll be able to see a screening of it before a premiere.
Yeah.
But a lot of times you're like the audience, you're just sitting there watching it for the first time. So it's all brand new and you're just taking it in, and you know, you feel a sense of like you're nervous and you're excited and you're really proud of all the creative work that everyone's done. But I got to yeah, it was incredible seeing it all together. And it was one of those that we didn't know, maybe it's going to be lost in the shuffle and it will
Right.
never, you know, because Amazon easily could have been like, hey, it didn't really get a promotion with MGM, no one really knows about it, so we're not going to use it.
Yeah.
And easily someone could have made a decision to table it, and you know, we'd never see it. So I'm glad that whoever, you know, touched it and greenlit it so we could all enjoy it. And like you, I hope that in years to come that it just kind of, there's a little motion with it, because
Yeah.
it's funny, even I you know, I friends will tell you what they really think, you know, the good, the bad, the ugly. And
Yeah.
you know, even some of my friends who it wasn't their favorite movie talked about it for like an hour. You know, like it's a movie that
Yeah.
creates good conversation because the premise is so unique. And it just,
Yes.
there's a lot of things that just come up about it. So I feel like it's a good conversation movie. You know,
Yeah.
like after you see it, you just want to talk about it with someone who saw it, because you're like, wait, what does this, and how did that connect? And
Mhm.
there's things, it's, And I think that's what makes art good art, is like when you want to have conversations, when you have strong opinions about
Yes.
it. And there were so much favorable opinions too, and that's always fun too when people love the baby that you just delivered.
Yeah.
They're like, your baby's beautiful.
Sure.
Um,
And I
but yeah,
think,
I think
well, I was just going to say, I think it's got rewatchability too, because it is layered like that. And there is stuff that you might get the first viewing that after you see it to the end, then you go back and rewatch, and certain things have a different kind of payoff on a rewatch.
yeah, but yeah, it's a good conversation movie. There's
Yeah.
just because the premise is you kind of think you know what it's going to be, and then because of some of the twists and the turn, you're like, oh, that's the social implications of this movie are like really
Yeah.
interesting to talk about.
Yeah. And again, I mean, the whole cast was great, I thought, but the leads, I'll just mention them quickly. I mean, you got Casey Lights, who I thought he's got a great future too. I mean, he knocked it out of the park, and just I just thought he, really carried every scene he was in. And I was Mari Crutchfield, she's in it, and I think I was thinking about it today. Is she the only female? I think maybe two or three other females in the entire cast, maybe. And but I thought she was good, and wanted to see some more of her. But I loved, what time she did get on screen. I love when she was like, well, let's go kill it, and
Let's get
that's
it. Yeah.
yeah, that's like one of my favorite parts. I'm just like I'm so with them when she says that in the movie, and it's just like, yeah, this is, but I was into it like as soon as it opens with like that opening narration, and just, setting it up, and yeah, David. I mean, I love the fact that he doesn't waste a lot of time delivering the goods that, that we think we're there for. But again, I think people are going to go in thinking they're there for one thing, and then they're going to realize, oh, there's a lot more going on than what you think. But yeah, we don't have to wait too long to get some Sawtooth, and I dig that too.
Yeah, it's super fun. There's I we so all the bandits, the gang, like Casey Lights,
Yes.
they all have like denim jackets. And so
Yes.
for the cast party, a few of us got together, we all got denim jackets and we painted them.
Yes.
And so everyone, like all the actors in the film, we all have like denim jackets that like have like sawtooth things, on them. And
That's
on
cool.
mine, it has a tally mark of all the kills in the movie. And there's 28 kills. So
That's
that was
great.
kind of fun.
Well, that's a damn impressive kill count, I'd say, for a first outing.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
that's going to rank Sawtooth up there in the kill counts right off the bat, I think. So that's good to know, guys. 28.
Yeah, I no, those aren't all sawtooth. Some because there's
Right.
some people who get killed not by sawtooth, but those are just
But
that's the blood, the body count of
that's the
the
body
movie.
count. There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So the movie comes out, and meanwhile, as you're waiting for that release, I guess, is that when you got Rebel Moon and did Rebel Moon? Because now we can talk about that. Part one is out on Netflix now, and I watched it. I loved it. You embody Jimmy, another droid, I guess, robot, right? This one
Yeah,
voiced by
yeah.
the great Sir Anthony Hopkins. I mean, like you're sharing a character with Anthony Hopkins, which, you know, look, kind of known guy out there, kind of big in the
Uh,
industry. Zack Snyder. It's this big sci-fi epic, and of course we got part two coming out in a few months. But walk us through stepping into that world.
yeah, that was bonkers. Like Zack Snyder knows how to make a big film. It's like
Yeah.
if you like a big film, with big sound and big special effects, a big script and big casts, and it's like he is such a master at that. Zach's superpower, first of all, I don't know when he sleeps because he writes it, he directs it, he produces it, he's the cinematographer, he storyboards. Like Rebel Moon has like 4,000 drawings that Zach did by hand of like everything he wants to shoot. So he's so organized. So first of all, I don't know how he sleeps, but Zach's superpower is enthusiasm. He on set all day long. He's just like, let's do it, let's go, and he's
Yeah.
just, you can't help but get like sucked into the Snyderverse.
Yeah.
It's so fun. Like Zach is, he just is infectious with his enthusiasm, and
And he's
like,
behind the camera too, right? Like he's his
yeah,
own cinematographer and DP usually, right?
yeah.
Or for this
Sometimes he
whole
has,
thing, I think.
yeah, sometimes he has someone else do it,
Okay.
but I believe for this one he's very hands-on.
Yeah.
He's very tactile. He loves to touch everything. He loves to like meddle with everything, and just
Yeah.
he really has he has such an excitement and ownership of every detail, and I'm so glad him and Netflix have forged this partnership that just Netflix sees the value of Zach and is like,
Mhm.
hey, we're going to let you be you,
Yeah.
and we're not going to try to control you. We're not going to try, we just want you to do what you do best. And in that freedom, Zach just is thriving, and it's so fun to see
Yeah.
just him be the most Zach that he can be. And I'm so proud. Rebel Moon is probably my favorite set that I've been on. We shot the first and the second at the same time. So I'm so excited to see how part two is edited and how it all comes together, because it's a great story. Like how what was set up in part one, how it
Yeah.
all comes together in part two is like, I'm so excited. The audiences are gonna lose their minds. There's so many cool things coming up. But yeah, getting to be Jimmy with Anthony Hopkins. I they cast they were still working on who was going to voice the character when I was cast. And I remember having conversations with the production team, and they were like, well, we want someone like an Anthony Hopkins, someone who has a very proper, regal type
Mhm.
sound. Um, and so they're like, yeah, we want to try to get like an Anthony Hopkins. And so then a couple months later, when it was Anthony Hopkins, everyone was so excited that, we had his gravitas,
Yeah.
attached to the project. And I mean, getting the opportunity to be Anthony Hopkins' body is pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. It's got to be. I mean, I mean, he's an icon and a legend. And yeah, you're here on this set. You're embodying another, pivotal character. Now we don't get a ton of Jimmy, but I mean, he's set up, and we got a pretty good idea. He's going to have a bit more to do in the sequel. I think what we get is awesome, but yeah, we don't get a ton. But like you said, this part one is obviously laying the groundwork for a lot to come in part two.
And what is like Zach is so smart too, in the way he's just part one that we've seen is just to wet our whistles,
Yeah,
just to like give us like a quick introductory intro into this world and these characters.
yeah,
His of course his vision is always the extended version, and he could have done probably a 6 episode miniseries on Rebel Moon and just taken his time and done it. But he just kind of wanted to give everyone the overview. Hey, this is Rebel Moon. And then, later on this year, I believe he's going to release the extended cut. And
right.
in that, each character will be explained a little more. There's some really heartbreaking and intuitive and insightful things on most of the characters in the film that aren't in what we've seen, but you'll see a little backstory of like why this character is like that or how they became this. And like one of the big things is like, why is Jimmy wearing antlers at the end? Like there's
Right.
a shot of him, he's kind of observing the leads, riding away, and he has a cape and antlers and a big
Yeah.
staff, and you're like, wait, how?
What was he up to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hopefully in the extended version, we, will
We'll see.
explain a little more of the journey that Jimmy has had to get to that moment, and who Jimmy is becoming and what he's like thinking. And but all the characters I like that they have backstories that Zach knows, and he's just given enough to like spark your curiosity. But the extended version really explains like things that are happening behind the scenes, and I think that's kind of fun that there's like more to be revealed.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to part two, and I love part one, and
Me
there you
too.
go. You're a pop. You're a pop figure. I
I
mean,
really want to. I want to sawtooth one of these, but
oh yes,
we got to
yes.
make that happen.
I
Maybe
think it,
someday.
I think it's only a matter of time. I think there'll be Sawtooth Pops. We got to have the NECA figure, you know, the collectible. I could see a Trick or Treat Studios mask, like you know, I could have it over here, and I could see all that happening. Yeah, it's just got to get in front of the right eyes. But I do think, you know, because like you said, it was kind of a small release. They didn't do a ton of promotion, and but yeah, I think it's one of those that just word of mouth over time is going to grow, and hopefully the demand for the sequel will grow, because yeah, I'm ready for it now. I'm
Yes.
MGM, Amazon, come on, let's do
Well,
it, let's
what I
do it.
love kind of about the like opening that it had
Yeah,
was that it's like the diehards are diehards, and it's like
yeah.
you saw it before it was cool to know about
You're
Dark
right.
Harvest. It's like you and your audience. It's like you're on the ground floor or something like super excited. You're like, oh yeah, we've totally seen that movie. We totally know all about it. You know, like in years when someone is just finding out, like, oh, have you seen Dark Harvest? You're like, I've been a Dark Harvest fan for six
Yeah, where
years.
you
You know,
been? Yeah, right,
it's
where
like
you
you
been?
guys are on the ground floor or something like really
Yeah,
exciting
me and
and
Dustin go way back. Where you been?
way
Yeah,
back.
darker. Yeah, but yeah, I do feel like that, and it's been like that every now and then. You know, over the years, you know, we'll see something, or I'll see, and I'll predict. I'll be like, you know, this is gonna catch on. You know, this is gonna be he's gonna be on T-shirts, and every now and then, not all the time, but every now and then, I've predicted it right. I got that feeling with this one. And yeah, I'd love to see the David and the whole team back to give us some more. And more of those glorious jack o' lanterns too. That
Yes. Hey, I don't know if any of your so this was we're filming this in January of 2024.
yeah,
Casey Likes is on Broadway right now in the Back to the Future musical. You can see him
that's
singing and
awesome.
he plays Marty McFly.
I
He
love it.
is brilliant. I've got to see it. It's the production is amazing. Like if you or your audience is in New York, it is
Yeah.
worth a trip to see Casey Likes as Marty McFly in this
Oh man.
huge Broadway musical. It's so fun. It's so
Oh
fun.
man. I'm sure he's killing it out there. He's
He
great in
is.
this film, and yeah, I'm not very familiar with his other work outside of Dark Harvest, but I'm sure. Yeah, I have no doubt he's great in it, because he was just really impressive in this film, and really, you know, kind of carries the movie on his shoulders. He's in pretty much every scene of film,
And
just
I
about.
think filmed at like 19. I think
Yeah,
I mean, he was just like a kid, you know, really, like you said, carrying the weight of this movie.
yeah.
And he's so responsible. You know, like he really takes things very seriously. And but it's so funny. It's like just the tip of the iceberg of who he is and what he's capable of doing. And just seeing his work in Dark Harvest and then watching him in Back to the Future, you're like, well, these are very different things, and they're both masterfully done.
Yeah,
He's a really fun guy.
yeah. I'm sure.
He's another one to like kind of watch and see where the trajectory of his career is going to be going.
Exactly. That's what I was just going to say. I think, you know, we're going to see him do much bigger and awesome things in the years to come. I know he's got a great future, and we're going to be watching for all that. So obviously we've got Rebel Moon Part Two coming. Is there anything else you can plug or tease that we can look forward to seeing you in upcoming
You know,
beyond Rebel Moon Part Two?
part two comes out in April. Super
Yep.
excited about that. I did a reality TV show that
Okay.
that's going to come out sometime this year. It's
Okay.
called it's like a Project Runway type show where I'm one of the designers. I make clothes and
Wow.
things like that.
Awesome.
So I'm like exercising to some different skill sets that I have.
Yeah.
But so that's coming out. I don't know when, I don't know where, but that's coming out. So I'm excited about that. I'm nervous because it's like the first time my face will be seen. I'm not hiding behind like a
Yeah.
monster, you know, it's like we're a
Right.
robot.
Hmm.
Um, but that was kind of fun just to get to exercise my creativity in a different way and
Yeah.
to, I guess, show my love for Halloween. You know, I've been making costumes
There
since I
you
was
go.
little, and you know, like here I am on a TV show, like making costumes, and so that will be fun. But as far as horror movies and things like that, I have a couple irons in the fire. But no contracts in my hand. So, but there's a couple studios that have reached out and we're kind of talking about some cool things coming up.
Oh man. And yeah, and I love how you bring it full circle back to playing Halloween still. It all goes back to those early days, and yeah, in a way, every day is Halloween for you, as a performer and an actor that you are. And yeah, when those other projects come to fruition, we'll have you back on, and we'll talk more about that. Whether it's a Dark Harvest sequel or not, or something else in the Star Wars world. They like to use a lot of the same people, and I mean, there could be more Ned-B, or I could see them using you for all kinds of other Wookiees or whatever they might need. I could easily see you embodying some other characters that they might need, or more Ned-B. I'd take more, because with Star Wars, they can go back and forth and write their own rules. However, but I think
Yeah.
the fact that you're part of that family now, you're part of the Marvel family, you're part of Zack Snyder's Netflix family, and Sawtooth Jack. I think you're in a great position to move forward and to do more of these awesome projects. So
Oh,
we're
thank you.
cheering you on, man.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, and I love getting to meet people too, like the fans of the things. I get to do some conventions, some Comic Cons and things like that. So if people follow me on social media,
Yeah.
my Instagram is that Dapper D. I post like if I'm going to conventions and things like that. If you have like things like this that you want to sign, or if you have a Dark Harvest movie poster, like that was my favorite before the movie even premiered. The people brought like posters in that they had like made themselves or
Yeah,
printed out, and
that's
I
awesome.
remember like signing the very first Sawtooth Jack. Like I was like, I'm signing something of Sawtooth
That's
Jack. That's
great.
so cool. But I love having conversations with people, and just meeting people too. So like if you follow on the Instagram, you're able to see, or I'm coming to a city near you. I'd love to meet you guys, and face to face.
That's awesome, and we love going to those type of events. And yeah, hopefully we'll get out to one, and we'll connect in person, and I'll get a Sawtooth still or poster signed by you. But yeah, that is awesome, and I'm sure with your involvement in these projects, you're going to get more invites to more convention type appearances. And yeah, now you're kind of part of both worlds. You can go to Comic Cons, you can go to horror conventions, pop culture conventions. You're kind of got a foot in each of these genres, so that's not a bad place to be, I'd say.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun. I love the convention world is so cool. And what I love about it, it's like you said, it's Halloween every day.
Yes.
Like people dress up and you have that freedom just to be kind of creative and silly or spooky and scary, and you
Yep.
just it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is. And yeah, like you said, it's another extension of that everyday is Halloween culture and lifestyle that we're all in favor of, and we try to live ourselves. And it sounds like you do too. You're one of us as well. So
Absolutely.
that makes us even more proud of you, and proud to know you.
Oh, thank you, Matt.
Well, Dustin, this has been awesome. I can't thank you enough for taking the time to walk us through all of these amazing stories and your experiences. And like you said, I'm sure this won't be our last conversation. We're going to have you back on and talk about some other exciting stuff. But this has been amazing. And again, if you haven't watched Dark Harvest, if you're not ready to go watch it after this conversation, I don't know what's wrong with you, but I can't recommend it enough, and everything else we talked about today too. But this has just been great, man.
Same. I've really enjoyed I can't wait to watch more of your videos too.
Well, thank you, man. That means a lot. And I never like saying goodbye, because every day's Halloween anyway. So instead, I just say Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. I love it. Bye.